Welcome everyone to today's class. The topic I am going to teach today is pharmacotherapy of heart failure. So, what is heart failure? Heart failure is the condition in which the heart is unable to pump sufficient amount of blood to meet the metabolic demands of the body, and it is also unable to receive it back. This heart failure is not a single disease entity but is a clinical syndrome which results from structural or functional impairment of ventricular filling or ejection of blood. Ventricular filling is nothing but the blood which is getting pumped from atria to ventricles, and ejection of blood is the blood which is getting pumped from the heart through ventricles. So, here we need to know about a term which is ejection fraction. Ejection fraction is amount of percentage of blood which is being pumped from the ventricle in each contraction. So when the contraction happens, the left ventricle will be pumping some blood to the whole body, and that blood is called like the percentage of blood which is leaving from the ventricle is called ejection fraction. So what are the etiologies of heart failure? Etiologies means causes. What are the causes of heart failure? And the heart failure, first we need to know that there can be decreased or depressed ejection fraction, but can also be preserved ejection fraction. It doesn't mean like when there is a preserved ejection fraction, it doesn't mean your heart is healthy. Sometimes even with preserved ejection fraction, you will be having heart failure. So let's see the causes of decreased ejection fraction heart failure. It is coronary artery disease. That means the blood vessels which are supplying to the heart, that is coronary arteries disease. Chronic pressure overload, chronic volume overload, both of them in the heart, and chronic lung disease, non ischemic dilated cardiomyopathies, toxic or drug induced damage, Chagas disease, which is caused by a bug, Trypanosoma cruzi, and this is a long term effect on heart failure, and disorders of rate and rhythm like arrhythmias. Those are the causes of depressed ejection fraction. And coming to preserved ejection fraction, pathological hypertrophy of the cardiac cells, that cardiac myocytes, and aging, old age, any endomyocardial disorders, restrictive cardiomyopathy, and fibrosis. And other states, this is high output states, means the body is requiring more metabolic demand of the blood supply, so the heart is unable to meet the demand of the body. So what are the conditions? Metabolic disorders like uh, example hyperthyroidism or toxicosis, in which there is an increased metabolic demand which the heart is unable to meet. And nutritional disorders, example anemia. In anemic condition, do not get enough oxygenation for the body, so it demands more blood supply, which the heart cannot be uh, meeting. Because of that, heart failure can happen, and excessive blood flow requirements. These are the causes of heart failure. Now coming to primary signs and symptoms of the heart failure. The signs and symptoms: tachycardia, that is increase in the heart rate, and decreased exercise tolerance, means the person who is suffering from the heart failure cannot do exercise like a normal everyday exercise, he cannot do. And shortness of breath, and it can be also associated with cyanosis. Mm, because there is already decreased blood supply, because of which we can it can cause inadequate oxygenation and hypoxia, and can cause shortness of breath with cyanosis. And decreased urine formation, because there is decreased blood supply to kidney also, which will be affected. And cardiomegaly, because the heart, in order to pump more blood, it may cause hypertrophy and other cardiac remodeling, which I will be discussing later. because of which there is an increase in the size of the heart. And peripheral and pulmonary edema. This is accumulation of fluid peripherally and in lungs. So this is a normal cardiac contractility. In normal cardiac contraction, this is a myocyte in which this you have to know, because further the drugs which are being given in heart failure, they'll be having the mechanism like acting, that mechanism of action will be involving this things which are being shown in this image. So here sodium potassium ATPase pump, what is happening here? There is influx of potassium and outflux of efflux of sodium. So this sodium, and there is also a sodium calcium transporter also. When the sodium is coming inside, the calcium will be exported outside. Usually, this calcium is needed for the contraction of the muscle cell, as we know. But what happens, like that, after the contraction happens, the excess calcium should be sent outside. And how is it sent outside? Because of this sodium influx. So here what is happening? Calcium efflux with sodium influx. And this sodium is also involved in sodium potassium ATPase pump also. So this is where this is how the calcium will be entering. And also this calcium channel is also involved mainly in the influx of calcium. This is voltage sensitive L-type calcium channel. So through this, the calcium will be entering inside, and after the contraction, the excess calcium will be again getting out through this sodium calcium transporter because of the influx of the sodium. So this is how the normal cardiac contractility happens. And here this is sarcomere. This calcium, how it is entering into the sarcomere is this pump, this sarca pump. So this is how everything is going on. This is normal cardiac contractility. So pathophysiology, what is happening in heart failure? What are the changes happening in the heart? Like what are the other uh, organs or systems being affected because of the heart failure? Involves four major interrelated systems: heart itself and the vasculature, means all the blood vessels, kidney, and neurohumoral regulatory circuits. What happens to the heart? It undergoes this pathological cardiac remodeling. What is happening? There is an increase in the demand. Let's say there is an increase in the demand of the blood supply. The heart have to pump more blood to the body, because of which there is an overload on the heart. So the heart should pump. So what happens is the cardiac myocyte hypertrophy happens, means increasing in the size of the cardiac cell, due to which what happens, there is a reduced capillary or myocyte ratio. Even though the cell is increasing, the blood supply for the cell to function well should also increase. But here there is no increase in the blood supply. Blood supply is like it is been normal cell blood supply, but the cell is increased. So there will be reduced capillary myocyte ratio, means blood supply is low, but the cell is bigger. This causes like alternate gene expression of myocyte ion channels, calcium regulating proteins, and contractile proteins. These are different proteins involved in the uh, growth of the cell, etc. So this, because of which the myocyte will be increased, and further it will undergo fibrosis. After fibrosis, some cells, cardiac myocytes, undergoes apoptosis, means cell death or necrosis. So what is happening? Some cardiac sites will be dying, and some cardiac sites will be hypertrophied. All of this results in the increase in the heart size. There is increase in the heart size, but there is no increase in the enough supply in the to the body. So in the end, there will be increase in the size of the heart. And what are the changes in the vasculature? It because of this heart failure, there is a premature stiffening of the vessels, and there is an dysfunction of endothelium. Sorry, there in aging there can be stiffening of vessels, which can also cause a difficulty in the pumping of the enough blood to the body. It can cause the heart failure also. And coming to kidney, what happens is when there is a decreased blood supply to the kidney, there will be two conditions happening. There is increased renin release in the kidney, and there is decreased glomerular filtration rate. So this increased renin, what will it cause is it will increase the angiotensin 1 release, and after angiotensin 1, angiotensin 2 also will be in the process. It will also be increasing, and it will lead to the release of aldosterone. This is renin angiotensin aldosterone system. This whole process is getting uh, started because of the increased release in the renin, and because of the decreased glomerular filtration rate, it will cause more sodium and water retention, and because of which it can cause edema in the peripheral regions in the body. So in kidney, this is what happens. This angiotensin 2 mediated regulation of filtration rate, regulation of kidney perfusion will be affected, and aldosterone mediated regulation of sodium channel, and AVP regulated water transport. So this is all happening in the kidney. And then neurohumoral regulation. What happens is when the baroreceptors, means the pressure receptors present in the heart, they sense a decrease in the blood pressure. And what happens? They trigger the receptors, beta 1 receptors present in the heart, because of which there will be an increase in heart rate and the contractility. But the, this baroreceptor, because of affecting of this sympathetic activity, it will also cause an alpha 1 receptor activation, which is these alpha 1 receptors will be present on the blood vessels. Those blood vessels will be undergoing vasoconstriction because of the stimulation of the alpha 1 receptor. So because of these two both happening, there will be enough blood pressure, like it sensed the hypotension. So what is doing it? Doing the vasoconstriction. Because of it, the blood pressure might increase. So it is trying to like compensate whatever like the blood supply needed for the body, and it is trying to make the heart work better to give better blood supply. This is normally like happens even in normal conditions, but in heart failure it will be increased. So there will be an activation of sympathetic nervous system, and we saw renin angiotensin aldosterone system also in the previous slide in the kidney. And vasoconstriction, as I said, because of the their action on the alpha 1 receptors on the blood vessels, decreased kidney perfusion and increased aldosterone production. And there is also these ANP BNP. These are atrial natriuretic peptide and brain natriuretic peptide. These will also be uh, releasing getting released, and these will also act in the neurohumoral regulation. There is also increased circulating levels of arginine, vasopressin, and endothelin 1. These will be promoting the vasoconstriction and fluid retention. And why is this happening? Why the vasoconstriction and like that fluid retention is happening is to compensate, because of which like there will be an increased blood volume. Because of the increase in the blood volume, what happens, there is an afterload will be increasing with the increase in the peripheral vascular resistance, and because of which the heart will not be is is unable to pump the extra blood which is there in the afterload. But what is happening here is this added volume to the blood increases the blood volume which is reaching the heart. So it is giving more blood to the heart to pump, due to which like it can help in the more pumping of blood from the heart. And norepinephrine and epinephrine actions on heart, because these are the neurotransmitters which will be releasing in the sympathetic nervous system. What are the normal actions of these neurotransmitters? Is positive chronotropy, which is increase in the heart rate; positive inotropy, increase in the contractility of the heart; and positive clinotropy, which is increased like a rate of force; and positive lusitropy, cardiac muscle relaxation; positive dromotropy, increased atrioventricular conduction; and positive bathmotropy, which is increased automaticity. So here what is happening, as we discussed previously in the slides, when the baroreceptor dysfunction happens, those signals will be reaching the vasomotor center in the brain, because of which the sympathetic nervous system activity will be increasing, and they decrease this lymph blood flow, like because like they need to increase the venous return to the heart. So and it will also decreases the renal blood flow, because of which the sodium reabsorption, water reabsorption, aldosterone secretion will be happening. And these also increases the vasopressin secretion, which also acts on the kidney. And as I said, it can all the because of decreased blood supply to the kidney, there will be increased renin secretion and increased angiotensin 2 secretion, in turn which increases the aldosterone secretion. These are the stages of heart failure according to NYHA classification, and this is New York Heart Association classification. And class 1, with cardiac disease without resulting limitation of physical activity. There is cardiac disease, but the patient can do physical activity. Class 2, there is cardiac disease resulting in slight limitation of physical activity. And class 3, there is marked limitation of physical activity. And class 4, resulting in inability to carry on any physical activity without discomfort. And coming to another classification, American Heart Association classification, stage A, B, C, and D. Here, first, there is a high, they are at risk of heart failure, but there are no structural heart disease or symptoms of heart failure. They are just at risk. Means there can be any metabolic conditions, or that that, as we discussed, thyrotoxicosis or anemia, etc. And stage B, structural heart diseases, but without signs or symptoms of heart failure. Structural heart diseases like in a coronary artery disease or any cardiomyopathies, etc. Stage C, structural heart disease with prior or current symptoms of heart failure. There are symptoms. Symptoms are being started. As we saw, the symptoms were like tachycardia, cardiomegaly, decreased exercise tolerance, etc. Stage D, patients with advanced structural heart disease with marked symptoms of heart failure at rest despite maximum medical therapy. So this is stage. These are the both classifications of heart failure. So how will you treat this heart failure? And this heart failure is also again divided into chronic systolic heart failure and acutely decompensated heart failure. In chronic systolic heart failure is the common one, like this is what we will be studying in detail. So what are the principles of treatment? What do you do? This neurohumoral modulation, whatever In pathophysiology, we saw whatever the neurohumoral regulation is happening, it should be modulated, and we should decrease the preload. Means, like, even though like the heart is having the increased preload, if it is unable to pump enough blood to the body, if the heart is failing, the blood will be stagnating in the heart, which might cause more even more problems. So we should decrease the preload, and we should decrease the afterload. Afterload is the amount of blood which is staying in the heart after pumping, the amount of blood which is staying in the ventricles, and increasing the cardiac contractility. So the rate of contraction increasing, so that it can contract better to pump better blood supply. And heart rate reduction. So the rate of heart, that is heart beat, like the heartbeat, number of heartbeats result reducing the heartbeat rate. Now here, this is another chart showing like what happens when there is a decreased cardiac output. When there is decreased cardiac output, there is decrease in blood pressure, and also other organs perfusion, like a kidney or liver or other organs. So what happens? There is an increased, there is stimulation of sympathetic nervous system, and this renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system, and there is increase in vasopressin, and also this atrial natriuretic peptide and brain natriuretic peptide will also be increasing, because of which there will be natriuresis, diuresis, and there will be vasoconstriction to increase the blood pressure, and there will be afterload and preload increase also, and there will be increase in heart rate, force, and blood pressure. This will like further will be increasing the cardiac output. This heart rate, force, and blood pressure will be increasing the cardiac output, but these may affect the heart negatively. And there can be this cell cardiac myocyte hypertrophy, and cell death, fibrosis, arrhythmias, as we saw in the previous slides. This will affect negatively on the heart. Though in the starting it tries to compensate, but later this process will be ending up in a bad situation. So what are the different drugs which are being used in the treatment of chronic heart failure? Angiotensin convertase enzyme inhibitors. It was discovered, this is ACE inhibitors. This was discovered in 1960 from an extract of a Brazilian pit viper. It is a snake, and they saw this bradykinin. They, like, previously this was named kinase 2, but now it is called angiotensin convertase enzyme. So these drugs which comes under this ACE inhibitors are broadly classified into sulfhydryl containing ACE inhibitors, dicarboxyl containing, phosphorus containing. So sulfhydryl containing is captopril, dicarboxyl containing is enalapril, phosphorus containing is fosinopril. So what is it doing? These AC inhibitors, these are these are affecting this receptor. Sorry. So what is happening is, so that in enzyme is acting on the AT1 receptor. And what is this AT1 receptor doing? It is doing vasoconstriction and stimulation of aldosterone release from adrenal glands, direct hypertrophic and proliferative effects on cardiomyocytes and fibroblasts, stimulation of norepinephrine release from the sympathetic nerve endings and the adrenal medulla. So this is all these actions will be decreased because the enzyme is being inhibited. So first drug captopril, it is a very potent ACE inhibitor and oral availability is 70%. With food, it will be reduced by 25 to 30%. Peak concentration is within an hour and it can be clear rapidly. And oral dose is 6.25 mg to 150 mg 2 to 3 times daily. Enalapril, this enalaprilat is the active form of this enalapril. This is a metabolite of this enalapril. This enalapril is a potent ACE inhibitor, oral availability 60%. Peak concentration is within an hour. Plasma half-life is 1.3 hours. But here you can see plasma half-life of this enalaprilat is 11 hours, very longer than enalapril. Oral dose 2.5 to 40 mg daily. Dose 6. Here enalaprilat 0.625 mg to 1.25 mg over 5 minutes repeated every 6 hours. It is available as intravenous injection. It is not absorbed orally. Lisinopril, it is a lysine analog of enalaprilat, orally absorbed slowly, incompletely. Peak concentration is in about 7 hours. Plasma half-life is 12 hours. It is excreted unchanged by the kidney. Dose is 5 to 40 milligrams daily. And in heart failure with hyponatremia or renal impairment, 2 to 5 milligrams daily with medical supervision. Benazepril, benazeprilat is the active metabolite of this drug and it is metabolized in liver by glucuronide conjugation. It is excreted in urine and bile. Peak concentration within 1 to 2 hours. Plasma half-life is longer, 10 to 11 hours. It gets accumulated in the lungs, this drug, and dose is 5 to 80 milligrams per daily. Fosinopril, this active form is fosinoprilat. It is also metabolized in liver and excreted in urine and bile. Peak concentration is within 3 hours. Plasma half-life is 11.5 hours. Dose is 10 to 80 milligrams daily. And trandolapril, trandroprilat is the active form of this drug, metabolized in liver, excreted in urine and feces. Peak concentration 4 to 10 hours. Here it shows biphasic elimination kinetics. Means initially it might show another zero order or sorry, first it will be following the first order kinetics, then it will be following zero order kinetics. So plasma half-life initially is 10 to 11 hours. Dose 1 to 8 milligrams daily. Quinapril, its metabolite quinaprilat, metabolized in liver, excreted in urine and feces. Peak concentration 1 2 hours. Here also there is biphasic elimination kinetics. So plasma half-life initially will be 2 hours, then it is being prolonged, that is 25 hours because of the biphasic elimination kinetics. Dose is 5 to 80 milligrams daily. And ramipril, ramiprilat is the metabolite metabolized by liver, excreted by kidney. Peak concentration 1 to 3 hours. And triphasic, here it shows triphasic elimination kinetics. Plasma half-life 2 to 4 hours initially because of the drug itself, and 9 to 18 hours then because of the drug's metabolite. Later, this drug metabolite should be eliminated, which will undergo zero order kinetics. Then it is increased to greater than 50 hours. Dose is 1.25 to 20 milligrams daily. Moaxipril, moaxiprilat is the metabolite and it is absorbed incompletely, markedly reduced by food. Peak plasma concentration is within 1.5 hours and elimination half-life 2 to 12 hours. Dose 7.5 to 30 milligrams daily. Perindoprilat, absorbed incompletely, markedly reduced by food. Peak plasma concentration occurs within 3 to 7 hours. Elimination half-life is 3 to 10 hours and initially, later 30 to 120 hours, and dose is 2 to 16 milligrams daily. Adverse effects of these AC inhibitors. hypotension. They can cause hypotension because of their continuous action, and they can act this cough. Cough is an important adverse effect of this AC inhibitors. Hyperkalemia can happen, acute renal failure, angioedema, fetopathic potential when taken by the mother, pregnant lady, and skin rash. Drug interactions, when these drugs are taken with antacids, the bioavailability of these drugs are reduced, and when taken with capsaicin, the cough is worsened, and when taken with the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, it reduces anti-hypertensive response. And potassium sparing diuretics and potassium supplements, it normally already might cause hyperkalemia. Here we saw hyperkalemia. So potassium sparing diuretics, it can increase the hyperkalemia and may increase plasma levels of digoxin, lithium, and hypersensitivity reactions to allopurinol. Now, angiotensin 2 receptor blockers, ARBs. These blockers have 10,000 fold selectivity to 81 receptors over 82 receptors. It competitively binds to the 81 receptor. Valsartan and candesartan are approved for heart failure. Oral bioavailability of angiotensin receptor blockers is generally low, that is less than 50%. Protein binding is high. Candesartan silexitil. This is a drug and it is hydrolyzed to candesartan. Peak plasma levels occurs 3 to 4 hours after oral administration. Plasma half-life about 9 hours. Plasma clearance, renal elimination is 33% and biliary excretion is 67%. Daily dose 4 to 32 milligrams orally once or twice daily. And valsartan, peak plasma levels 2 to 4 hours after oral administration. Plasma half-life about 9 hours. Plasma clearance, circulation by liver, because of which there is approximately 70%. Daily dose 80 to 320 milligrams orally once daily. Adverse effects of this drug, these are generally well tolerated, but there is an incidence of angioedema, but there is lesser chances of cough than ACE inhibitors. These have higher teratogenic potential, so should not be given to a pregnant lady. In patients with renal artery stenosis, it can cause hypotension, oliguria, progressive azotemia, or acute renal failure. So, when comparing this angiotensin receptor blockers and ACE inhibitors in the treatment of heart failure, these ARBs reduce activation of 81 receptors more effectively than ACE inhibitors because it is directly acting on the 81 receptors, whereas ACE inhibitors, they are inhibiting the enzymes which are acting on the receptors. And ARBs permit activation of 82 receptors also. These 82 receptors have a positive effect on the heart failure. And AC inhibitors and ARBs increase the angiotensin levels by different mechanisms. Both will increase. And AC inhibitors increase the levels of number of ACE substrates, including bradykinin and like ACSDKP. This is a protein. Here, angiotensin 1 levels because they are not helping in the acting of angiotensin 2 and on the angiotensin receptors. There will be releasing of angiotensin, but there will not be any action on the angiotensin receptors. Now coming to beta blockers. These beta blockers competitively reduces beta receptor mediated actions of catecholamines. What are the key points in this treatment with beta blockers is this therapy must be initiated in a stable condition and very low dose, and dose escalation requires time. Means start low, go slow, they will say with beta blockers. Means they should start with very low dose and you should go if you want to increase, you should increase very slowly. And beta blockers protects heart from adverse long-term consequences of adrenergic overstimulation because as we saw there can these continuous sympathetic stimulation because of the heart failure can cause the pathological cardiac remodeling, which is like it is a serious condition. These beta blockers can protect that. So what are the drugs under this? Metoprolol, bisoprolol, carvedilol, nebivolol, and all the metoprolol, bisoprolol, nebivolol, beta 1 selective, but carvedilol is non-selective. It is a alpha 1 receptor antagonist also, and this nebivolol have additional vasodilatory actions. Major cardiovascular responses with use of beta blockers are the heart rate lowering and atrioventricular block, bronchoconstriction, peripheral vasoconstriction. Successful therapy of heart failure needs steady plasma concentration of the drug. This drug metoprolol, it is having two short half life, that's 3 to 5 hours. Hence, zero order prolonged release formulations are used because this dependent on the cytochrome P2D6 metabolism. So in poor metabolizers, like in 8% population of Caucasians, there is a chance of 5-fold higher peak plasma concentration. When they lack this, not lacking, there is poor metabolizing capacity of the cytochrome P2D6. Bisoprolol, sufficiently long plasma half-life, 10 to 12 hours for once daily dosing. It is not dependent on the enzyme. And carvedilol, shorter half-life, 6 to 10 hours, requires twice daily dosing. Metabolism depends on cytochrome P2D6 like metoprolol, but lesser than metoprolol. Nebivolol also depends on the cytochrome P2D6. It has 10 to 15-fold higher peak plasma concentration. Those are the beta blockers and mineralocorticoid receptor antagonists. Why? This mineralocorticoid means aldosterone is a mineralocorticoid. Aldosterone, what it does, it promotes sodium and fluid retention and loss of potassium and magnesium, sympathetic activation, parasympathetic inhibition, myocardial and vascular fibrosis, baroreceptor dysfunction, vascular damage. These are all happening because of the aldosterone. So you should stop this aldosterone acting on the receptors. So mineralocorticoid receptor antagonists. Antagonists of nuclear receptors of aldosterone. So here there is a term called aldosterone escape. What is this aldosterone escape? Initially, the aldosterone will be like effectively it cannot be acting on the mineralocorticoid receptor by because of the mineralocorticoid receptor antagonist. But later, after the treatment is being continued, further it might cause in due to the heart failure that aldosterone will not be sufficiently being suppressed by the antagonist, because of which there can be again sodium and water retention. This is called aldosterone escape. Currently, two MRAs are available. There's a mineralocorticoid receptor antagonist, spironolactone and eplerenone. Spironolactone also have affinity for androgen and progesterone receptors, because of which they can cause gynecomastia. And eplerenone, it is selective for mineralocorticoid receptor. Most common adverse drug reaction is hyperkalemia. So, what are the guidelines to use MRAs in patients with heart failure? Administer no more than 50 milligrams per day, and do not use if the glomerular filtration rate is less than 30 milliliters per minute. Be careful with elderly patients and diabetic. Do not combine with NSAIDs. Do not combine with potassium sparing diuretics. Now, angiotensin receptor and neprilysin inhibitors. So, the latest edition, this is valsartan or sacubitril. This is a prodrug, inhibits the neprilysin. This neprilysin mediates the enzymatic degradation and inactivation of natriuretic peptides, bradykinin, and substance P. As these are which also being released during the heart failure. This sacubitril acts on the enzymatic degradation and like because that neprilysin will be inhibited and will mediate the activation of natriuretic peptides Now diuretics. Diuretics relieves the sodium and water retention and gives quick symptomatic relief. Like usually diuretics are used when there is like a severe edema caused by that heart failure. And limitations, these do not increase the cardiac output nor do they improve any ventricular function. So any excessive use of diuretics might cause like cardiac output and renal perfusion will be decreased because of the removal of excess water. Do not improve the like survival rate and they can cause electrolyte disturbances. In mild heart failure, diuresis causing weight reduction of less than 1 kg per day should be aimed for. And moderate efficacy diuretics such as thiazide is preferred instead of a loop diuretic, preferred to a loop diuretic. Intermittent use, that is 2 to 3 times a week, is preferred to daily administration. As the disease progresses, the use of furosemide is inevitable. Increased daily dose of furosemide administered in 2 to 3 divided doses per day. Now vasodilators, these are again divided into arterial vasodilators, venous and combined. Arterial vasodilators example hydralazine, venous example nitrates, combined example prazosin, ACE inhibitors, angiotensin receptor blockers, sodium nitroprusside. And there is a fixed combination formulation in use, which is 37.5 milligrams hydralazine plus 20 milligrams isosorbide dinitrate. Increasing cardiac contractility. How do you increase the cardiac contractility? That is sodium and potassium ATPase inhibitors and CAMP dependent inotropes, myofilament calcium sensitizers. These will be used to increase the cardiac contractility. So here, what are the sodium potassium ATPase inhibitors? Cardiac glycosides. These exist in plants as precursors, which on hydrolysis releases the active glycosides. So in a glycoside, there is aglycone or genin and a sugar moiety. This is non-sugar moiety, that is aglycone and sugar moiety. This aglycone has the pharmacological activity. This mechanism of action of the cardiac glycosides is they act on the sodium potassium ATPase pump, because of which there will be a increased uh, accumulation of the sodium inside, because of which the calcium will not be effectively uh, thrown out of the cell, because of which there will be accumulation of calcium also, and because of which there will be increased contraction of the cardiac muscle. Here, as you can see, this is a sodium potassium ATPase pump. Normally the sodium should be going out when the potassium is coming inside, but this pump will be inhibited by this cardiac glycosides, because of which the sodium will be accumulating, and when the sodium will be accumulating, the influx of sodium will be decreased a little, because of which the efflux of the calcium will be also being decreased. Pharmacological actions of the cardiac glycosides on cardiovascular system: they increase the contractility of the heart, they decrease the heart rate, and refractory period, they shortens the atrial refractory period, prolongs effective refractory period of AV node, and shortens the ventricular refractory period. Conduction velocity in atria and ventricle. In small doses, they increases the conduction velocity, but in therapeutic doses, they decrease. And AV node Purkinje fiber system, it will decrease the conduction velocity, automaticity is increased, and blood pressure is increased. Coronary circulation is increased. Venous system, there is decreased venous pressure. What are the ECG changes can be seen? There is depression or scooping out of ST segment, inversion of first proportion of T wave, PR interval prolonged, and QT interval shortened. What are the extra cardiac actions? On kidney, it increases the urine output due to decrease in venous pressure, improvement in renal circulation, and inhibition of renin release. And on gastrointestinal tract, it can produce anorexia, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Pharmacokinetics, usually it is administered orally or intravenously. Absorption is mostly from small intestine, and after subcutaneously or intramuscularly given, it is unreliable. Absorption after the injection is being given. It follows first order kinetics. And how is it given in heart failure? The doses. For routine oral digitalization, 0.25 milligrams once in 24 hours. For rapid oral digitalization, loading dose of 0.7 milligrams in 24 hours, followed by maintenance dose. For IV digitalization, 0.5 to 10 milligrams. So these is the differences between digoxin and digitoxin. So absorption 70 to 80% in digoxin, but digoxin 90 to 100%. Plasma protein binding is very low in digoxin, 25%, but in digoxin 90% or more. Disposal, renal excretion of unchanged drug 50 to 75%. This digoxin is metabolized in liver. Enterohepatic recycling, it is 6 to 80%, very less in digoxin, but in digitoxin, that is extensive. And plasma half-life is very more in digoxin, 5 to 7 days, here 24 to 48 hours. And therapeutic plasma concentration, 0.5 to 2 nanograms per ml, 10 to 35 nanograms per ml. Time for maximum effect of a single dose, here 4 to 6 hours, it is 6 to 12 hours. And persistence of effect after stopping drug. This is 3 to 6 days, but here 18 days. And time for digitalization without loading dose, 5 to 7 days, and 25 to 30 days in digoxin. What are the preparation available? Digoxin tablet 0.125 or 0.25 milligram. Digoxin injection 0.25 milligrams per ml. And digitoxin tablet 0.1 milligram. Digitoxin injection 0.2 milligrams per ml. And liquid filled capsules of digoxin 100 micrograms and 200 micrograms. Elixir digoxin 1 milliliter equivalent to 0.05 milligrams of digoxin. What are the therapeutic uses of radioglycosides? Heart failure, chronic heart failure or left ventricular failure. Arrhythmias, atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter, paroxysmal atrial tachycardia. What are the adverse drug reactions? This therapeutic index of this drug is very narrow and most frequent and most serious adverse drug reactions of this drug is arrhythmias. About 90% of the adverse drug reactions are arrhythmias, and gastrointestinal toxicity approximately 55%, neurotoxic symptoms approximately 12%. And what are the symptoms and signs of digoxin toxicity? Anorexia, nausea and vomiting, and decrease in pulse rate less than 60 per minute, presence of extrasystoles, bigemini or other arrhythmias. So what should we do when there is digoxin toxicity? How the treatment goes? Stop digoxin immediately, stop diuretics, estimate the serum potassium, and bradycardia if it is existing, you give atropine. Mild toxicity, in mild toxicity you can give oral potassium salts, because if you give increased potassium, it might replace the digoxin effect on the sodium potassium ATPase pump. So oral potassium salts 5 to 7.5 grams of potassium chloride. And in serious arrhythmias, solution containing 40 milliequivalents of potassium chloride in 500 ml of 5% glucose IV over 2 to 4 hours. Supraventricular tachyarrhythmias, oral propranolol dose 10 to 40 mg every 6 hours or 0.5 to 1 milligrams intravenously. And ventricular tachycardia is existing. Lignocaine or phenytoin IV. Lignocaine 1 to 2 milligrams per kg initial dose followed by similar doses at 20 to 30 minutes or drip rate 1 to 2 milligrams per minute. Phenytoin sodium 250 milligrams well diluted over 3 to 5 minutes. And in severe toxicity, anti-digoxin specific antibodies, DZMine, should be given. Now, treatment for acutely decompensated heart failure. This is a leading cause of hospitalization in greater than 65 years old people, and it is there is a higher recurrence. Means once affected, after treatment, he can get affected again. And 1 year mortality of 30%, 50% of patients have preserved ejection fraction. Normally, ejection fraction will be shown normal. Reasons: acute myocardial infarction, uncorrected blood pressure, and atrial fibrillation, and other arrhythmias, pulmonary embolism, and kidney failure. What are the aims of therapy in acutely decompensated heart failure? Fast symptom relief, short term survival, fast recompensation, reduction of readmission rates. Main principles of therapy are like the treatment of choices are diuretics and vasodilators. Lesser extent, positive inotropes. Diuretics relieves the dyspnea, signs of overload or congestion. Usually, IV loop diuretic is given. IV bolus of 40 to 80 milligrams furosemide can be given. Thiazide can be added, and potassium should be monitored. Excessive can cause hypotension, reduced glomerular filtration rate, electrolyte disturbances, further neurohumoral inactivation. And vasodilators, these decreases the preload and afterload. So the drugs nitroglycerin and nitroprazide can be given. They decrease the preload and decrease the wall stress and decrease the O2 consumption. Decreases the afterload because of which expels the blood against low resistance. The drug nesiritide or human brain natriuretic peptide, it increases the CGMP. Dobutamine, beta adrenergic agonist of choice, and these increase the stroke volume and decreases the systemic vascular resistance and decreases the afterload. How it is given? Continuous dopamine infusion 2 to 3 micrograms per kg per minute up titrated. Dopamine and dobutamine are the same. And the low doses, when dopamine low doses is given, D2 receptors, sympathetic nervous system, and decreased norepinephrine release, decreased adrenergic stimulation of vascular smooth muscles. Sorry, dopamine and dobutamine both are beta agonists, but dobutamine has a little more effect on beta 2 receptor also. Now, dopamine, when given in low doses, they act on the T2 receptors and sympathetic nervous system. There is decreased norepinephrine release and decreased adrenergic stimulation of vascular smooth muscle. Intermediate doses, that is 2 to 5 micrograms per kg per minute, given to, they act on beta receptors. They increase the cardiac contractility. And higher doses, 5 to 15 micrograms per kg per minute, dopamine can do alpha mediated peripheral vasoconstriction. Epinephrine, norepinephrine, and CAMP PD inhibitors and myofilament calcium sensitizers, these also help in the increase in the cardiac contractility. So with this, we are ending this pharmacotherapy of heart failure. Thank you.